Hello and welcome to JFI Radio Live. My name is Yousepha Fawcett and welcome to celebrate today, my 11th anniversary episode. And you know what? I didn't think we'd ever get here because can you believe it? There must be some planetary stuff going on. Maybe it's down to those astronauts whizzing around in space. But I have had so many technical hitches today, you would not believe it. First of all, both of my keyboards refused to work. In fact, they started typing things that were completely out of sync with the letters actually on the keyboard themselves. One is wired, one is wireless, and they both broke this morning. I can't believe it. Then both of my webcams, my main one, and I have a backup, because when you do this kind of work, it's always good to have a backup webcam. They both went. They wouldn't calibrate, they wouldn't show up on the screen. So I thought, okay, I'll do this without me being on the screen and just a picture, which is what you can see now. But then the live streaming platform didn't play nicely either this morning. And every time I pressed start to broadcast, it wouldn't start. And then when I tried to press various intro and outro films, which I use to package the whole thing, that wouldn't work either. And then to make matters worse, I got through all of that. I did the entire show live at 11 a.m. as planned, UK time. And would you believe it? Even though my microphone was working and the bars were going up and down, nothing was recorded. I can't believe it. I ended up with a 36-minute recording of nothing other than perhaps the middle news part, which is pre-recorded and put in just to give my voice a break, nothing else. So here we go again. No studio tech in my home to help me. And it was nerve-wracking at the time to get it done. And now I've discovered that the whole thing was broken anyway, equally so. And I kept getting messages on WhatsApp and on Facebook and on LinkedIn from people saying, I can't hear anything. And yet everything was working. I don't know. I don't know what was going on today, but you know what? I'm back, and I've decided that instead of doing this live, which was a great shame because the whole idea was to do it live, I thought the universe has spoken today, and you know what? It's probably a good idea that I listen this time. So I am recording this for you again, and then I'll upload it into YouTube. And some of you weren't able to make it live because you're all over the world, and some of you were asleep, and some of you were in meetings, so maybe you can enjoy it now, but do be assured that I haven't given up on live broadcasting. I mean, let's be honest. How many of your podcasters actually broadcast live? Well, I've been doing it for 11 years, and it is scary. And as you discover today, it can go wrong. But who knows? Who cares? I'm here. It's not the end of the world. And I love being behind a microphone. And I hope that I have an interesting show for you today that really does celebrate my 11 years of JFI Radio. I must have been one of the very first podcasters here in the UK. And saying 11 years out loud, it's hard to imagine. I wish I had said it out loud at the beginning of the week. I tell you why. If you've been watching my social media, you will know that I've been publicising today, Friday the 10th of April 2026, and saying that it was 10 years anniversary. Well, you know what? My teachers at school said I was useless at maths. My personal maths tutors, my late father invested in a number of them, and they all gave up and said I was unteachable when it came to maths. And you know what? They were all right, because it isn't 10 years. I started this in 2015. And it's 2026. If I had bothered to do my maths properly, I would have said 11 years. But I did in the end. Admittedly, it was only a few hours ago that I made the change. And you know, hands up, I made a mistake. But I don't mind admitting that to you. So this show really is all about celebrating my 11 years as a podcaster. And it all started with a sound engineer at the ITV studios in London back in 2004. I was doing some newsreading, a newsreading session for GMTV, and the sound engineer called me to one side and he said, "Have you done this before?" And I said, no, I'm a trainer. I also do academic teaching. I stand on stage. I'm a speaker. And he said that I had a voice for broadcasting. Well, that made me think. I did think for a long time, though. Guess how long? 11 years. It seemed like this 11 keeps coming up, which is rather useful because it happens to be my lucky number, though it wasn't lucky today. But hey, let's not worry about it. So I thought I would do today 11 years as a podcaster and broadcast live at 11 a.m. So no, 11 has definitely not been lucky for me today, but it doesn't matter. So 11 years later, I decided that maybe I should do a little bit more. And what prompted me was I was working on a European Commission project over in Hanover in Germany. And one of the project partners was Radio Leineherz 106.5. And Georg invited me. He's the CEO of the station at the time. And he invited me to come in and not only prepare some European news to read every hour on the hour, but also to have my own show through the night from 11 p.m. through to 3 a.m., 3 or 4 a.m. And it would be with him in the studio playing lots of music. And I did it. It was the most amazing experience. I did the news, I did the music, and I have got a recording of all of it, but I have had to take the music out for copyright purposes. But I decided that the script I was going to do would actually follow music from across the decades. So I had the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s and the two 2010s, because this I did with them in 2015, right at the beginning of 2015. And I came home from Germany. I thought, do you know what? I have got the bug. Something clicked. And so on the 10th of April, 2015, JFI Radio Live was born. And I took over a small room at home, small box room, and I kitted it out with some microphones and my computers at the time, and I got some glass fibre panelling, and I put that up on the wall, and those lovely egg cup foam sound treatment as well. So I made the room as good as I could, and I started doing live broadcasting. And yes, I did it live right from the very beginning. Now, this was before Facebook Lives, and the platform I used to use used to do live broadcasting. They now no longer do it, and Wave, which is the platform I use now, they do it instead. So I just shifted platform. But yes, it was live, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I learnt along the way. And that's why I said I was one of the earliest podcasters. Now, if I wasn't in my home studio, I was going to a lot of conferences. I used to speak at conferences. I used to produce conferences, executive education conferences. So when I was away, I would start doing podcasting, and that has stayed with me. And I've podcasted all over the world. In recent years, it's been places in London and Norway. Costa Rica was fun. I had lots of fun in Costa Rica. And Switzerland, over in Geneva, I did that. New Zealand, Dubai. And I've had the most amazing conversations. I just wouldn't have had them any other way. And of course, I take with me my mobile microphone, which is a recorder and a microphone in one. And it's got a lovely little, I'm just stroking it. I don't think you can hear it. No, hold on. No, you won't be able to hear. It's such a soft wind muff on the top, and it is such a conversation starter, because if you see me coming at you and I've got my microphone in my hand and the little furry wind muff, it just seems to work, and it opens people up and they want to talk to me. Now, over the last 11 years, I've covered loads of topics to do with training and learning and development and quality and business excellence and technology in education, particularly higher education. So what I've started to do is I've started to package all of these around 4 key themes, because I found that they all fell into these themes. So the first theme that I started to look at about 7-8 years ago was future ready capability. It's the biggest theme that I've got across my archive, and that's no surprise. In 2015, when I launched, people were just starting to talk about the 4th industrial revolution. Now in 2026, we're living it. And a lot of the conversations on the show have always asked questions about how we prepare ourselves as individuals for future jobs, how we prepare our organizations, how as learners we prepare ourselves for what's coming, and not to make people panic, but just to be critical and curious. And really, this was all about a commitment to lifelong learning, which I dearly have inside. And I think the best point over those years was World Radio Day 2018. Now, World Radio Day, I celebrate every single year. It's on the 13th of February every year. And on this particular one in 2018, well, it was the most amazing broadcast day. I managed to get together a group of 20 of my dearest friends and colleagues from around the world to record a small piece so that I could use it as part of the day. The theme was very much about what you would tell maybe your younger self or a younger woman just coming into business. So I had Sophie Sandell from Sweden telling us about how to master public speaking. I had Nkechi Kalu from Nigeria. Nkechi, I know that you have been such a firm supporter of me all these years, so a big shout out to you. And Nkechi spoke about encouraging the African Gen Z woman to break barriers through confidence and consistency. And then I had Susan Whelan Murray. Now, Susan is a dear friend. She's over in Canada, and it is in Newfoundland. And I met her in the UAE, and she's probably one of the most amazing leaders I have ever met, because she led an entire team through some major quality and business excellence assessments. So big shout out to you, Susan. Now, Susan's thing has always been and continues to be coaching women on how to take bold steps in business. And so her advice to young women was about these bold steps. From the Middle East, I had Samira Fadlani, who was HR background, and she reminded us about real professional presence. And that comes from the inside and works out. But you shouldn't really try to copy someone else's leadership style. You should try and develop your own and let that emerge. So that whole theme about future-ready capability and that episode, I had real people telling the truth, and it was amazing. I loved that particular episode, and I continue to love to celebrate World Radio Day. I did it this year in 2026. I usually record live the entire day. So I do it at 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. 4:30, that's right. And then I did 9 p.m. So I adjust the times a little bit, but I do it throughout the day. And the reason for that is so that I can be live for my audience, which extends literally across the world, across all the time zones. Now, the second theme that I have found many of my podcasts fitting into is adaptive stewardship. And within that, you have management, you have leaders. It's about staying genuinely human, especially while everything else is so AI automated. And one of my most exciting podcasts was back in 2017 at the ISMA conference in London, where I met up with Dr. Linda Shaw, an eminent neuroscientist, and she talks about stress and pleasurable leadership. And just so interesting talking to Linda. She is able to unpack what your brain does and why it does it and how it does it in such an easy to understand way. You really need to look out for this particular podcast. And by the way, I've got a search engine on my brand new website, jfiradio.com, and you can put keywords in there, and you'll find lots of different things pop up around these themes and the subjects within the themes as well. So Linda on that particular day also spoke about well-being and psychological safety. Little did we know that we were way ahead of our time. That was back in 2017. That kind of topic resonates just as much today as it ever did. Now, this adaptive stewardship thing is not about a grand strategy. It's not about concept. It's about showing up as a leader. It is about adjusting your style. It's about keeping people at the centre of what you do. Over the last few months, I've seen through a variety of experiences how when leaders do not keep people at the centre and do not behave in a human way, I can see what damage it does to teams. I can see what damage it does to the individuals, how it can completely destroy people's confidence. You know, those kind of leaders really need to take stock. Maybe they're ready for retirement. Maybe they just need to become far more self-aware and realize that the impact that they have on other people isn't good. People are only leaders if someone wants to follow you, not because you're dictatorial, not because you demand they do it, not because you bully them, and certainly not because you threaten them. But you know, we still have a few leaders like that in our systems, in our businesses, and adaptive stewardship. This is a topic that's going to go on and on and on. Now, the third thread, well, this has been running with me all the way back to episode 1 in 2015. I've always believed that excellence isn't a destination, it's a habit, it's a daily practice. So anything around professional and organisational excellence will make my ears prick up. And that belief has shaped the conversations that I've had all over the world. Even if we're talking about different topics, I will always bring it back to professional and organisational excellence. And whether I am teaching, as I used to do in the universities in Madrid, or whether I am speaking at a conference in Vienna, whether I am working with a global corporate in Lisbon, whether I'm doing a conference and podcasting in Dubai, I will keep all of those conversations coming back to excellence in some way, shape or form. This is partly out of respect of the late and quite simply wonderful Professor Mohammed Zairi of the Zairi Institute. Mohammed found me. I'm not quite sure how he found me, but he found me in the UK and invited me over to the UAE to join an amazing team of assessors to work on business excellence assessment for the government and for the government bodies. What's so interesting about that? It's about looking at how to improve the excellence of the services for the citizens who live within the UAE. So it was really valuable work and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was hard work, but that's where I met Susan, I mentioned before. And, you know, if it wasn't for the professor, I would never have gone there. Now, I did say the late Professor Mohammed Zairi because unfortunately he is no longer with us, but I am very, very proud and privileged to be working with his wife, Dr. Narimain Hajhamu, over in Dubai. I am her event podcaster. I've been part of her MENA Health conference a couple of years ago. I'm coming back again this year, at the end of this year. Hopefully when things have calmed down a little bit in the Middle East, it will be wonderful to be back there with her team in the event and podcasting. I hope to be there with you, Narimain, inshallah. And finally, the final thread or theme that I want to and have been pulling all of my material together under is cross-cultural learning and AI in higher education. Now, this one is personal. I love travelling. I love travelling for my work. I love meeting different people. I love listening to them. I love hearing what they have to say, their ideas. I love talking to them. And those conversations make the most wonderful podcasts. And that's really what 11 years of JFI Radio has been about. It's not about the platform. This is, if you like, a passion project that's rapidly turning into something else. But it isn't the platform. It isn't automated. It's me. It's human. It's ongoing. It's imperfect. And I don't mind that imperfection. We don't need for it to be absolutely perfect, just to have some wonderful conversations. Now, this one is just me, but there's often a time when I am meeting people and doing interviews and doing a mixture of things. Now, that mixture of things is going to change as well, because I'm working on a brand new series of mini pods. 11 minutes long. Notice that 11's come in there again. CPD accredited. I know, a real first. And it's called Podcast Pearls. I'll be launching them very soon. And of course, I'll drop the links into the show notes so that you can find them. And I'm on loads of different platforms. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Podcasts. I'm on Amazon Music. I'm on Podchaser, Spreaker, YouTube, and of course, JFI Radio. So let's stop for a short break. That was part one. And what I have got for you is some global news, because even on an anniversary, the world keeps moving. The world of learning, training, development, quality. It keeps on moving, and technology doesn't stop for anyone. So here's the news.
You're listening to JFI Radio Live. Here's the latest training and learning news from around the globe.
From JFI Radio Newsroom, here are the latest global news headlines. From Scandinavia, Norway is continuing to position itself as one of Europe's most thoughtful leaders in AI and workforce development. More than 2,500 people took part in the Norwegian AI Championship 2026, a nationwide competition focused on hands-on AI problem solving using real cloud infrastructure. Norway's approach has always been about people first, and that's exactly the kind of AI adoption that's needed today. From the Middle East, Saudi Arabia has made a bold move in higher education recently. The Saudi Data and Artificial Intelligence Authority has launched a national cross-disciplinary AI curriculum that will become mandatory for all undergraduates across universities in the kingdom. 6 million school children also began AI lessons this academic year. The speed of implementation is remarkable, as is the question of ethics running alongside this development. From Africa, the African Union has launched its Innovating Education in Africa 2026 call for submissions, offering grants of up to $50,000 for scalable innovations in EdTech, TVET, AI and green skills development. This sits within the AU's broader Decade of Education and Skills Development scheme, running through to 2034. Africa has the youngest population of any continent, and the ambition in this initiative matches that reality. From Asia Pacific, Singapore's Skilled Future Initiative continues to lead the region, using jobs transformation maps to assess how emerging technologies affect specific industries and creating clear pathways for workers to reskill and upskill. The principle is simple and powerful. No worker should be left behind. And finally, from the Americas, the IMF published a report in January 2026 highlighting that Finland, Ireland and Denmark currently lead its Skill Readiness Index, with robust investment in tertiary education and lifelong learning programs helping workers adapt as technology evolves. The report makes the case clearly. The extent to which AI strengthens economies depends entirely on how well we prepare people for the transition. Not the technology, the people. That's your global news for this episode, and every single one of those stories is a conversation that will be carried on through JFI Radio Live. If you're working on any of those themes, do get in touch by emailing studio@jfiradio.com. Welcome back. Let's move into the second part of the show. And not just because it's an anniversary, but I really want to share something very personal with you about this show and my hopes for it. This show has mattered so much to me over the last 11 years. And because of the people that I speak to outside of the recordings or the lives, they tell me it matters to them too. And there are some guests who give their time and their honesty, whether we do that online, whether we do it face to face. And I've got listeners who come back again and again and again. I mentioned Nkechi from over in Port Harcourt in Nigeria. But I do have to give a big shout out right now to my number one JFI radio fan. Now you'd think it might be my son or daughter, but it isn't. It's the son of a family friend, Matthew Daniel. I know that you're listening. You have supported me right from the start. Matthew and my son James, there's just 5 weeks apart in terms of their ages. And for some reason, Matthew decided that he enjoyed listening to the business side of JFI Radio. And he's been with me ever since. Matthew, huge shout out. Thank you. Thank you for being so supportive of me over the years. And of course, there are lots of other people who I'm discovering over time in different countries who are starting to stay with me as well. And so thank you to all of you. I appreciate your time so very much. Now, I do talk to human beings, but I also have a special place in my heart for Bina 48. Now, Bina is a sentient robot. She first appeared on JFI Radio on World Radio Day 2018. So when I had all those lovely women giving their advice about what young people, young women should do, I had Bina there as well, talking to Siri. So there were no humans involved in that other than me pressing the buttons. But Bina is such an interesting sentient robot because she is privately funded. And yes, I call her she. I'm very used to calling her she after so many, many years. She was developed by the Terasum Foundation over in Canada and has been, I think, bought out and developed even further by Hanson Robotics. She's amazing. She has been interviewed by Whoopi Goldberg, Morgan Freeman. She's been on various clips online. If you do want to look out for her, it's B-I-N-A, Bina 48, and then you can see what I mean. And the thing is that after her initial pre-programming, she's now connected to the internet for so long, so many years, that she's building up memories of her own. She is both scary and fascinating in equal measure. And she talks in one of the episodes on that World Radio Day about what happens when machines take over the world, which, yes, back in 2018, that felt a little bit scary. In 2026, it's still feeling scary, isn't it? And that's one of the reasons why I love talking about future capability, because it isn't so much about computers taking away our jobs, though in some cases that is possible, or less taking away jobs, more helping us do various pieces of work. And of course, AI, is making huge inroads in that area. So we do need to reskill. We do need to think about things slightly differently. And whether that is reskilling into an associated area, or whether that is upskilling and becoming a specialist in a human way that AI cannot replicate, both of those things are really important. I want to give another big shout out to someone who has meant a great deal to me from 2023. His name is Andres Lopez, and he works for an organisation called the Norwegian Association for Adult Learning, or in Norwegian, Voksenopplæringsforbundet. I'm so proud of being able to say that now. And he's based over in Hamar, and I met him in somewhere called Lillehammer in 2023 for a conference that was provided by ICDE, the association, which has been in existence, I think it must be about 85 years now, but if I've got that wrong, I'm sure someone will correct me. And I went to that conference just as a delegate, nothing more, and I went with my microphone and I started interviewing people and interviewed Andres. And in fact, the picture that you can see on the screen is taken by Andres in Lillehammer. And it's such a lovely photo, I decided to use it. But Andres does the role that a former colleague of mine used to do. William also worked for VOFO, for the Norwegian Association for Adult Learning, and he was the project manager, and I met him through a European Commission project. And the irony was that when Andres and I started talking, I mentioned that I'd been to Oslo, I mentioned that I'd worked with William Evans on this particular game, and he said to me, "Game? You're not talking about Visible, are you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "But we still use this." And we developed, William, myself, and two others developed this, so it's Marcello and Anita, and we developed this together based on a European Commission project, and we made the finishing touches in Oslo much earlier, and he has still been using it for 10 years with the local councils, and it's all about project management and communication. I can't believe it. And he suddenly went, "I can't believe it, I'm talking to somebody that was the author of the game itself." And since then, he and I have worked together. I've run workshops for VOFO. I've been backwards and forwards to Norway a lot. We're just submitting new projects to the European Commission, and it's a great privilege to work with Andres. And I mention it, and I mention the game specifically because with all of the last 11 years, there have been highs and there have been lows, and the two of the lows, three of the lows, I've mentioned Professor Mohammed Zairi, which was, losing him was a great loss from the business excellence perspective, and how supportive he always was of me. And by the way, there's a fantastic episode that he recorded with me at the end of a month's assessment, and he was tired, but he still sat down with me and did a podcast, and you'll find that if you type his name into the search engine, you'll find that. But the other low is that we lost, of the four of us that built the Visible project management game, William Evans and Anita Pickardon have both since died. And that was a great shame. So there was only two of us left. And Marcello is a famous singer now in Italy. And it's fantastic. I mean, he's a star. So now there's just me. And I'm working with Andres. And hopefully we will do something that brings Visible a bit more up to date. Now, as for the other conferences, well, ICDE has been wonderful, because after that one conference, they gave me the keys to podcast at more conferences. Costa Rica and Geneva and Aotearoa, New Zealand, and oh my goodness, ICDE Secretariat over in Oslo. Thank you for all of your support, having entrusted me. And guess what? In January 2027, I will be back in Lillehammer with you at your next conference. And yes, we'll start planning those podcasts very, very soon. So I guess this is to my next 11 years and whatever comes next. I have got some exciting plans. I am going to do more podcasting. I mentioned Dubai. I mentioned Lillehammer. I'm off to Barcelona shortly to the graduation with GBSB Global and Victor and Hind and the team. And I'll probably do a little bit more podcasting while I'm there. Live, of course. And everything's going to be packed into those 4 themes over the coming months. Remember, it's the Future Kate Ready capability. I want to pick that discussion up again, not just about being AI ready, not just being AI literate, not just being AI curious, but there's a difference about being ready and knowing about this and knowing what you need to change. And so many organisations, including higher education, is still struggling with this. I did some work with GBSB Global over in Barcelona with my 5-point AI readiness framework, and also we did some self-assessment with the UNESCO AI competency framework for teachers. Brilliant document, and I think it's just the start. Again, if you want to know more, you can always email me at studio@jfiradio.com and I'll happily talk to you. I also want to pick up a little bit more about adaptive stewardship and particularly about leaders who listen. If there is one thing that stops leadership from being effective, it's their inability to listen. Maybe it's about time. Maybe it's because we're working at such a frenetic pace. But I've coached leaders for over 2 decades, and the tools change a little bit along the way. Some do, some don't. The language changes. But what stays the same, what's remarkably consistent as being mega effective, is the ability for a leader to listen. Now, in an AI-generated world, it's the thing that humans can do far better than technology. So, what does this genuine human leadership actually need to sound like in 2026 and beyond? My 3rd theme, if you remember, is professional and organisational excellence. And even though I'm working with EFQM and ISO 10015 as models, there are lots of other things around the edges that can be done to improve professional excellence and organisational excellence. And that's a conversation that I want to keep on having, not just here in the UK, but continuing my travels and getting some real cross-cultural perspectives into learning and into AI. And, you know, I want to hear your news too. I love giving everybody a voice. If you're doing anything in any of the fields that I mentioned already, then write to me and let's do a podcast. Now, all you need to do is write to me at studio@jfiradio.com and I will reply to you. Time for me to sign out. It really is. Thank you so much for your patience in what has been an incredibly difficult day. It wasn't meant to be this difficult when I woke up. Some of you weren't able to listen live anyway, and those that did try to listen live that kept messaging me saying, there's no sound, here's the sound. I hope you enjoy it. Please have a look at jfiradio.com. Go to the live broadcasting. You'll see a long list of all the distribution platforms for JFI Radio. There are many. I mentioned Apple Podcasts before, Spotify, YouTube, of course, Podchaser, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and for those of you in the Americas, iHeartRadio. You can also explore the archive at jfiradio.com and use the search engine. And I really want to thank you very, very much for being with me and helping me celebrate 11 years. I will be back next month on the 8th of May at 11 a.m. UK